Hello, boys and girls of Credit Union Land, and welcome to the 29th episode of the CUInsight Experience. My name is Randy Smith. I am one of the co-founders and the publisher of CUInsight.com, and it is my job on the show to have conversations with the best and the brightest from around the credit union community. I get to pick their brains and see if we can't find a few nuggets that we can all learn from. My guest on today's show is Mr. Charlie Amato. Charlie is the chairman and co-founder of SWBC. He's a board member of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, and one of the owners of the San Antonio Spurs. His bio is long. I would recommend checking it out in the show notes below. It's worth the read. It's not often on this podcast that Warren Buffett, Marie Osmond, and Jerry Jones are all brought up. What could they possibly have in common? Charlie. And all were mentioned on this episode. This conversation was a blast to have. We talked about how Charlie and Gary have kept customer service front and center, growing SWBC from the two of them to over 2,000 employees over the past 43 years. Charlie shared so many life lessons he's learned in his career in this episode, and also why service outside of the office is so important to him. There were so many nuggets in this conversation. You might want to have a pen ready. I think you're really going to get a lot from it. As always, we wrapped it up with the rapid fire questions, getting to know Charlie a little bit better. You'll even find out how he got to meet the singer from his favorite group of all time. Great story. So without further ado, I give you my conversation with Mr. Charlie Amato. Enjoy. Charlie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I was looking forward to this conversation and talking to you, after doing some research on the old interwebs. So something that I noticed over and over again was like the commitment that both you and Gary had for service, customer service. And, looking at it, it almost sounded like 40 years ago when you started SWBC, providing that service was one of the reasons behind it. Is it something that you felt was missing then? How do you feel about it today?
Well, yes, Gary and I felt that our former employer who we used to work for wasn't delivering the quality of service to our customers that we had hoped that they would. So whenever you go in to see accountants, say hello and have a cup of coffee, if they bark at you, that's not a good sign. It lowers your life expectancy. And so we felt that we would start our own company 43 years ago, by the way, April 1st.
Congratulations. That's impressive.
And build something special and build something built around quality and service. And so that's something that we've always wanted. And Gary and I talk about that all the time. The
question that really popped into my head from that was, when it was you and Gary, you really can control that service level. How have you been able to maintain that now that you have over 2,000 employees?
I think it's the culture of the company. Everybody understands it and they get it. And we preach about it all the time. And we feel that the culture of the company maintains the integrity of what our beliefs are and what we need to do going forward. A very wise man taught me that years ago by the name of Ray Hunt of the Hunt family in Dallas. And he said, culture's everything when it comes to building a company. He said, without the proper culture, the company will fail. And he used Enron as an example. And he said, if Enron had the culture of being ethical and practical and caring about their shareholders and business partners, they would have never failed.
They would have never gotten that trouble to begin with, or went down that path.
Right.
I know this is a broad question, but for our listeners, what does good customer service look like to you?
Follow through on your word and your deliveries that you committed into the field, even though we have 17 different divisions. Commitments are different depending on the division you have. But be true to yourself, be true to the customer, and deliver in a timely manner. We think that's what it is. We're not perfect. I'm sure we're not hitting it at 100%, but we try to get as close as possible.
That makes sense. Has there been you just mentioned 43 years since you started SWBC. What's been the biggest change that you've seen in financial services over that period of time? And has that pace of change maybe sped up over the past few years?
Oh, without question. Number one, we've lived through a lot of consolidations. That's affected the business a lot. And I think digital marketing, Facebook, the way people communicate, everything is public now. So you better be a person of your word, because you're pretty well documented when you get out of bed every morning. And so we think that's the biggest change that we've seen. You can't fool people anymore. Not that we ever wanted to, but you can't.
I agree with you there. I've always wondered how a decade or 2 decades from now, how anybody's going to be able to run for office with all they put on the social medias when they're teenagers and stuff like that. So
when I give I'm a board of regent in the state of Texas, and when I give a commencement address, I tell all the graduates that going forward in life, if you've been within 20 yards of a beer truck, put your phones away.
I think that's probably the best advice they're going to get. So, and there it is. Hopefully people have their kids listen to this episode. So just earlier today, I was reading an interview that you gave to the publication that the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas has, and you were asked about the tightness in the labor market in Texas. I know that's something that's let's say a concern across the country at this point. Is there something at SWBC that you're doing to not only attract talent, but to also retain the good folks that you have there already?
Of course, we talk about that all the time. We've even discussed bonus incentives, of course, even dress codes, being more relaxed about what we need to be doing around here. The labor shortage, it's real. Even though we have 10,000 people a day moving to the state of Texas, they are all coming down here because their corporations are moving here. So there's not a lot of excess. And it's the qualified labor that we're looking for. Also in the financial service industry, you need to be fairly well educated and qualified and being, up to the challenges that you're faced with every day. But it's real. We're having more and more people, Hispanics and African-American women, coming into the labor market, which has been very good for the market. And that's where we're able to really increase our labor force. They're all of a sudden come to work and build and have a career and help support their families.
Absolutely. Is there a change happening? A lot of the times I ask this question in just about credit unions, but I think you see a much broader scope than just the credit union community. But is there a change that you see happening right now that financial services has to adapt to, or they're going to kind of be left behind or lose that relevance?
I think you have to invest a lot of additional money in technology than you thought you were going to have to. Things are just moving so rapidly. We're building even bots in our data system to where these bots are going to even take the place of what humans have been doing for years for us. And the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas had a seminar 2 weeks ago in Dallas exactly about that. And I sent some of our IT people to that seminar. We're not really concerned about at the Fed what a lot of people are believing, that foreign governments are going to take our jobs away, this, and that. We're more concerned about robots and technology taking jobs away from people in the future. And that's where we see a lot of that going right now.
My guess is, with your work with the Fed, also their cybersecurity. I know on a previous show, Chuck Fagan from PSCU said in his time back as, the CEO of PSCU, he's not turned down a cybersecurity budget line increase yet.
It's something you cannot do. We spend a tremendous amount of money on cybersecurity here because we have so many of our customers' employee information in our database.
Yep.
It's the nature of our business. We can't get around it. And so if we ever get breached seriously, it could really set us back a lot. Jamie Dimon had me up for a function in New York 3 weeks ago, and he made it very clear, and he had people like me who are entrepreneurs and started their businesses and have grown businesses. And he told us what Chase's budget is. They spend $650 million a year in their cybersecurity budget.
And that's something.
And he said it's going to grow every year.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I've got I will tell you, it's a complete scratch my own itch question more than anything, but you just mentioned the word entrepreneur, and obviously you've had success in that. I'm a small business owner myself. For any entrepreneurs out there, is there a piece of advice that you give somebody who's, say, newer into starting that company that you've kind of held with you for the past 40 years?
I think you need to be consistent. I think that's the one big word. And what you do in your delivery and your comments and whatever you do every day, you need to be consistent so people will understand you and trust you over the long term.
That is good advice. Again, in my research, to say that you're involved in the community, you mentioned you're on the Board of Regents, of the university there. I know you've done a ton of work with the Children's Hospital. Was your involvement in the community something that was always important to you? Did it come with time, maturity, success?
I think a lot of it was instilled in me in my youth, but I did have a wake-up call where my son, when he was 7 years old, fell out of a bunk bed, hit his head on the corner dresser, and had a hematoma and almost lost him.
Ooh.
And that was the longest 24 hours of my life while he was in surgery. So shortly after that, the Children's Hospital had heard about that event. And so they sent the delegation of people over to come talk to me about getting involved with the Children's Hospital. And one thing led to another, and I got very involved. Over a period of years, I even became chairman of their board of the hospital system. And then Marie Osmond, after 3 or 4 years of what we were doing, we started credit unions for kids here. Tommy Sargent did it on the West Coast, credit unions for kids. We started it at the same time, and we raised a tremendous amount of money for the local Children's Hospital. And then it went national, it went viral. And a lot of children's lives were saved. And it's kind of thrilling to know to be a part of something like that.
I was going to say that has to be from, starting at the very beginning of that and knowing how large that's become now. And I mean, it's an industry-wide thing at this point. So
it is very large. And, sadly, he's fine, but Gary's grandson has been diagnosed with cancer and several years ago, but he's in remission and things are good. But you just never know what's going to happen to you in the future. And Gary is as big a believer in the Children's Hospital as I've ever been, I can assure you.
Well, that's one of those things that you never know when it's going to hit or how it's going to affect. Almost every family has been at some point in your time. Another scratch my own itch question that I had to ask you that is taking a complete pivot from the Children's Miracle Network hospitals, but 5 NBA championships. You're a part owner of the San Antonio Spurs. You ever just put on all the rings?
We've done it for photo ops. People ask us to. We don't, I'll be honest with you, I don't hardly even wear one of the rings ever because they're large, they're obnoxious, and they're not very comfortable. I'm proud to have them. Last year, we even got our G League team in Austin, the Austin Spurs won the championship, and I got a 6th ring, but of course not the same quality as an NBA ring.
I can't imagine it would be.
But it's every once in a while, Gary and I have to pinch ourselves to be a part of an organization like that. And the businesses that we're in the financial service business, they're fun, they're exciting, but to be a part of a professional sports team and win a championship, there's probably not a whole lot of things like that. It's special.
I can't even imagine. I read a quote that you gave in a different interview where that you said you've made a lot of good business deals, but nothing was quite as exciting as winning a championship. Is there anything that you've taken from your association with the Spurs back to SWBC or vice versa, like on building a championship team the other way?
I'm one of those idiots that watch the NFL draft and NBA draft on television because to me, you're drafting personnel to build your franchise and become successful. And that's what we do around here at SWBC. We try to hire the best possible people we can hire that will fit into our culture and watch those people grow and become successful in their careers. If all these people become successful, then SWBC is successful. And that's how you build a basketball team, baseball team, football team. Jerry Jones is one of my closest friends in Dallas, and I've watched him struggle over the last few years, and he said, "Before I die, I'm going to win another Super Bowl," and he means that. He's serious about it. And his sons, Stephen, and Jerry Jr., they're working, and his daughter Charlotte, they're working on it every day.
Yeah, I can imagine. And that leads it perfectly, I think, into the second part of the show, where I love to pick leaders' brains about leadership and life hacks that you've learned over the years. I mean, the inspiration that you and Gary had to found SWBC 43 years ago, has that changed over time with the growth of the company?
It has not. Of course, at our age, we probably lost a half a step. That doesn't only happen in sports. But I still have the excitement. Gary does too, the energy. Gary's traveling today on the East Coast with Mark Hine. We know that if we ever lighten up and soften up, it's like being in the fourth quarter of a football or basketball game and losing the momentum. You lose the game, and we have so much pride in what we've built. To be honest with you, we have a fear of failure, and we don't want to lose what we built over being lazy and obnoxious and stupid. And we want to keep the momentum going the whole time, and that's the only way to stay successful. If you become complacent, your business begins to fail.
Has that fear of failure been a motivator all the way through the career?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Yes, yes, and I'm sure it has been with Gary also. We both have a lot of pride, and we do not want to lose what we think has built a really good company. I was going to say fairly good, but better than that. And, we just don't want to lose it.
I would agree with you. Do you have a way, or how would you describe your leadership style?
I like to lead by example. There are very few people in this company that really travel more than I do, that work longer hours than I do. I never pull rank. I never feel like I can sleep in because I'm the owner, chairman of the board. I do work out in the mornings, I must confess. But I stay later, but I don't get in until probably 8:45 or 9 o'clock. Gary gets in a lot earlier than that. I feel like I have to maintain my health. And when you're in a lifestyle like we're in, and you're traveling 50% of the time, you're entertaining, eating rich meals, you're having cocktails, wine. If you don't take care of yourself, you decline fairly quickly. And so I do that's my little workout every day. To me, that's a luxury. That's my luxury.
That's your luxury. Well, it seems like it's keeping you sharp as well, right? To keep doing this and putting in the hours you are. So. Hey, how would your senior management team, you talked about you have, is it 17 different divisions basically, over it. How would those senior management that you've entrusted to run each of those divisions, how would they describe your style?
That's a good question. I think is definitely a team player, a builder, and people-oriented. I'm a people person. I'm a communicator. Gary's a communicator. We're just family. That's all I have to say. If someone does get out of line, yeah, I can bark. Gary can bark, and we have. But we have a really good quality senior management team around here, high quality.
Has that style, or has your leadership style, and maybe yours and Gary's as a team, changed over the past 10, 20 years?
I'd have to say I don't think so. I had a psychology professor tell me in college, the things you're good at when you're young, you get better at when you get older. The things you're bad at when you're young, you get worse when you get old. And I've always kept that in the back of my mind. I'm sure there are some qualities I have that aren't as sharp as they used to be, or as kind as I used to be in some areas, but I definitely believe that philosophy. But we try to maintain the consistency as much as we can.
Yeah, I've never heard that before, but I'm sitting here as you were saying that, believing that quite a bit. When you look at your team at SWBC, what do you feel is their greatest strength?
To understand the complexities of SWBC, whenever we have our management meeting, when all 17 divisions, and I'm talking 17 different type of businesses and disciplines sit together, they're all concerned about the whole. the consolidated, they're all team players, and they try their best to understand the other businesses and what makes them tick and what doesn't make them tick. And they're fascinated by it. I think we all learn something new in those meetings every time we have a meeting.
So let's take me to one of those meetings. Is there something your senior management team has heard you say so many times they can finish the sentence?
I'm sure. I'm sure. And as I told you earlier, consistency is one of them, and do not become complacent and pay attention to the detail.
Those seem like all pretty good ones for building a company. When you think back to earlier in your career, was there a mistake that you made or one that you see? You've obviously brought a lot of leaders throughout the system over the years. Is there a mistake that you see young leaders make over and over?
Today, I don't think they have the luxury to continuously make the mistakes over and over. Yes, I made a lot of mistakes, and hopefully we all learn from our mistakes. Gary and I are far from perfect, but we've learned from them, and time has shown that we've been able to survive them, and we make that a point to all our division heads.
If you had a piece of advice you could give yourself, say, at 25 or 30, what would it be?
To be honest with you, I'd say don't be afraid to make a mistake, because if you can be too conservative, and you've got to take some risk. And taking risk, you will make some mistakes, but don't let it get you down. Get up off the floor and start over again, just like an athlete would. Just stand up and be proud, and go forward, overcome what you've done.
Do you have a let's say, maybe not to use the word failure, but like a memorable? Where at the time it seemed like a failure, maybe, but now when you look back on it, you're like, I'm glad that happened that way because.
Oh, I've had more than one failure, I can assure you. Yeah, we made a lot of mistakes. It's cost us a lot of money over the years and some embarrassment. But again, you can't let that pull you down. And I'll probably make some more before I decide to go to pasture. I sometimes encourage our younger people to make mistakes. I really do, and everybody's going to make them, and hopefully you learn from them.
Yeah. Has there been a piece of advice or a life lesson that you received when you were younger that you find yourself going back to over and over again?
Whoa, that's a good one. I once asked Herb Kelleher, the founder of Southwest Airlines, he was on the board of the Fed with me before he passed away, what's the biggest mistake he made? And he said the biggest mistake he made in starting Southwest Airlines is using so much of his personal money in order to grow it. It kind of slowed the process down, and he almost didn't survive. And so finally he had to go to Wall Street and whatever and raise a lot of money to make him successful. But Gary and I have done the same thing. Up until the last 7 or 8 years, we've used all our money. We do not have outside investors, and we've just now we borrow money because we have to. We have a mortgage banking operation which has warehouse lines. We own a real estate development company that we have $200 million worth of construction going on right now. That company's based in Dallas. Going back to my mortgage company, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions. I can't tell you exactly. I can tell you what it is, but I won't because I don't want our competition to know everything. But,
right.
We just have a lot of money that we borrowed, but it's better than burning through our own cash.
So if you don't mind me asking, the real estate investment company, is that something you're doing in Texas primarily, or is it a national thing? Or
yeah, real estate development, yes. We build multifamily housing, all Class A. And we built them all over Texas. And that's the only division we have that we have not gone outside of Texas because we understand the Texas market.
Yep, that's home.
I understand the Texas economy. I have friends in Texas. I had lunch with the governor yesterday. I know Texas. And when you're going to invest that kind of money, you better know your market.
That makes a ton of sense to me there. As a leader, how do you, and I was really interested to ask you this question because, again, of the growth of your company, but how do you make sure that messaging stays fresh it's a much different company than when you had 25 or 50 or 100 employees to 2,000 employees. So from the top, how do you make sure that messaging that stays fresh?
I guess we're repetitive in our statements that we make, and we remind everybody of that. Our management team, we meet once a quarter. We don't have monthly board meetings, but we meet once a quarter. So we know early on you don't make money sitting in the office. You can do research. You can invest in technology. You can do this and that. But we like to leave our people free to be out and about and go out and communicate what we do out in the marketplace.
I love it. So if there's a free day, nothing on the calendar, I'm sure that doesn't happen that often for you. What do you like to do outside of SWBC? What do you do to recharge?
Well, besides basketball, I have an exotic game ranch in Lakey, Texas, which I raise a lot of exotic animals from Africa.
Oh, no kidding.
And they're beautiful, and I love being there. It's a beautiful part of Texas. It's in the real Texas hill country. The creek that runs through my property has been running for hundreds of years. It's never dried up, and the water's clear like swimming pool water. You can see fish swimming. It's just a beautiful place.
Oh, and do you get out there often, or not enough?
No. Well, once a month if I'm lucky.
Well, I do want to respect your time, so I want to get to the final part of the show. It's the rapid fire questions. The questions are rapid, but your answers don't have to be. Just to have a little bit of fun, get to know you a little bit better. Do you remember the first time you got into trouble, like memorable trouble that you could tell us about?
As a child, as a kid?
Sure. What's the first thing that comes when you're like, yeah, I got in trouble then?
First serious time is I played football in high school, and we were playing a team that was a rivalry, and we were talking a lot at each other on the field, and it got to the point, said, I'll meet you after the game at such and such place, and ended up doing that. Before we can throw one punch, somebody was watching us, and they called the police, and the police took me to jail, but I was never arrested, never charged, just to teach us a lesson. And my dad, I had to call my parents, and I said, Dad, come get me. He said, where are you? I said, well, I'm at the police station. He said, nope. Sleep, son. Sleep in there. I'm not going to come get you. You can stay there for a week. I will not come get you. But the police started laughing. In my little town, if you were a football player, you were like kind of a hero. Yeah. So they let us go.
But they made you call your dad first. I have a similar story where they brought a few of us kids home, and they made us knock on the doors and have our parents wave to them before they pulled away. So they knew your parents would take care of it. So do you have any daily routines that if you just don't do, you feel off?
I guess going back to my workout in the mornings, if I don't work out, my whole day is disoriented, it seems like. And I work out on the average of 6 days a week.
Okay, well, that's fantastic.
If I were younger, I would work out 7 days a week, but you got to have a recovery day.
You need to recover, right? Oh, I need to do more of that, obviously. The random question, what's the best album of all time? That one you can listen to front to back.
Oh, my Lord. God, there's so many of them.
You can only take one to that desert island.
Anything that the Four Seasons did, that was a kid growing up, and I've seen them perform live many, many times, and I got to sit with the lead singer, I blank on his name, a little guy on an airplane a couple of years ago. I sat right next to him. Jimmy Ballin?
Hold on.
I'm not sure.
That's all right.
I showed him on my iPad that I had one of their albums on my phone, on my iPad.
It's one of the ones you listened to.
Richie Valley, wasn't it? Richie Valley?
Frankie Valley.
Frankie Valley. There it is.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Hey, I love it. So that's great. And that's wild that you got to sit next to him, too. So I'm a big reader. We have a stack of books in our house that have been recommended to us. Is there a book that you either gifted over time or that you think everybody should read?
Well, I just met the author, and I'm reading it now, and this is easy. It's called Grit. Have you read the book Grit?
I have not read
How
that.
to be successful and work, and they expressed, I'm not finished with it yet, but she mentioned in the book that someone who works really, really hard will always outperform a more intelligent person if that person does not work very hard. So that goes back to your work ethic and everything else.
Somebody else, and I don't remember who, just told me about that at a conference I was at. They were reading it on the plane, and they said,
yeah, I met her. She's fabulous. I think she teaches at Penn State, I believe.
I will have to make sure to order that one for sure. As you've gotten older, what's become more important to you? And maybe more importantly, what became less important?
Well, I'd like to do a better job of managing my time, my quality of life. And I've thought about it. I haven't started doing it yet. I guess I haven't started doing it yet because I really like my life. You know, people say slow down. God, it seems like every month, every week, I get word it's one of my high school classmates has died or college classmates have died or blah, 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 blah. And it makes you reflect on life. And you look back 10 or 15 years, which seems like a couple weeks ago. And if you add that to your date now, hell, I'm going to be dead. 20 years from now, I'm a dead man. I'm a dead man. So you think about, I guess, more how you treat yourself personally and how you treat other people. And you try to get closer to those people you care about, spend more time with them.
Has anything become less important to you?
I wish I could say yes, but I wouldn't say that.
I love it. Well, that's good.
Not really.
I think that means you've been doing it right. So
I hope I get to go to Vegas with the Spurs in 2 weeks for the summer league. You know, we just had our draft last week, and the Spurs always invite me to go every summer so we can meet the new players, and that's fun.
Yeah.
And the NBA are having meetings at the same time. So it'll be a fun 5 to 6 days. And it gets me away from the financial service.
Concentrate on basketball. Have a little fun. There's a question I didn't send you. When you hear the word success, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Wow. A person, huh? Well, I know Warren Buffett.
I'd say he's successful.
And he's successful, and he's gentle, he's nice, and he cares about people. And his partner also, Charlie Munger. They're really two great Americans. That's all I can say.
That's fantastic. The last question. I greatly appreciate you taking the time today to be on the show. Do you have any final asks of our listeners or final thoughts you'd like to share with everybody out there?
Well, just go to work every day, maintain your health, enjoy your families, and continue to enjoy your careers.
Oh, that's a fantastic way to end. We will link to everything we talked about and everything you're involved in the show notes. If people have additional questions, is there a good way to reach out to you? Just go through the SWBC site?
You know Lisa, right?
We'll give them all Lisa's information. They can talk to Lisa. So,
well, no, you can call me. My secretary's direct line is 210-321-7535. I'm a little hesitant to give out my cell number.
I wouldn't do that either. I would ask you not to do that. So
either through Lisa or my secretary, I promise I will always return a call or an email.
That is fantastic. I'll make the ask of people not to bother you for insignificant reasons. But again, Charlie, I thank you so much for taking the time today. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope you have an amazing day and a great trip to Las Vegas to meet the new team members.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Randy. Pleasure of meeting with you today.
Oh, thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.